previous shiurim on TorahAnytime.com are from, well, let's do it in reverse order. From last year, there was a shiur called Silent Rebuke. From 2 years ago, In Our Time of Despair, Hope is Born. From 3 years ago, there's a shiur called Kiss. From 4 years ago, there was a shiur called The Feeling. Okay, so we start a new Sefer today, Sefer Devarim, and this marks the final 36 days of the life of Moshe Rabbeinu, and it is, for want of a better phrase, it's a recap of the Torah so far. It's Moshe Rabbeinu giving his final shiur, and as we mentioned in previous shiurim, he starts off with a rebuke. He gives Bnei Yisrael a bit of a telling off. But how does he do it? In this very mysterious, cryptic fashion. He gives all these place names. What are these place names? Arava, Molsuv, Ben Paran, Ben Tofel. What are all these names? Lavan, Chatzerot, Dizahav. So all these place names we know are their subtle forms of rebuke. Each one of these place names refers to one incident or another which occurred during the 40 years in the desert. For instance, you have the sin of the spies, you have the sin of Korach, etc., etc., etc. So the question is asked, why was the rebuke to the Bnei Israel made in a series of hints? Why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu just spell it out and say, excuse me, this is where you went wrong. Spies, complainers, this, that, the other. Just give a list and, explain where we went wrong, and then we can act on it. Why all this, subtlety and everything? In England we have a phrase, say what you mean what you say. There's no point in beating around the bush, just come out with it. So there are a number of answers to this. One answer, which I find particularly applicable, to me at least, is that if a person knows deep down, or maybe not so deep down, that he did something wrong, you don't have to tell him directly to his face, excuse me, that's where you went wrong. All you need to do is give him a little bit of a hint, and he'll get the hint, he'll hup, and he'll realize. You don't need to go in all guns blazing, with your big Uzi gun, and, mow him down. That's not what rebuke is supposed to be. People think rebuke, rebuke sounds horrible. I'm going to rebuke you. It sounds really offensive. It doesn't have to be offensive. It can just, like I always say, Rabbi Kirsch gave me one of the best examples. He said, imagine if you're going to see somebody important, like a king, and you're on your way there, and just before you're going in, somebody gives you a tap on the shoulder, and you turn around, what do you want from me? I'm about to see the king. And the fellow says, no, just before you go in, look, I just wanted to show you there's a little stain on your jacket. And you look, oh, wow, look at that. And you brush off, thank you so much. And you go in. Now, is the fellow going to be annoyed? Well, how come you're stopping me? How dare you? You just want to make me late. No, he's going to say, thank you very much. You saved me from being terribly embarrassed. The king could have lost his temper with me and had it, thrown me out of the palace. So we thank him. That is really what rebuke is all about. It's got to come from the point of view that the one who's rebuking and the one who's receiving the rebuke both know that it's all good. It's not meant to hurt people. It's for everyone's benefit. Now, I heard another example of an effective rebuke. I think I might have said it once before. It's definitely worth repeating again, because this is a diamond. Actually, it's talking about diamonds, but itself is a diamond. Listen to this. Imagine if there's somebody who is a diamond dealer, and he's going to, where do they go? They go to Thailand. They go to Thailand or Bangkok. I'm not sure. If Alex was there, he would tell me. Alex doesn't come anymore. He's advanced now from last year. He's gone on to bigger and better things. And he's in the precious stones business. But anyway, I think they go to Bangkok. So he goes to Bangkok, and he buys a large consignment of diamonds, and he brings them home. And he wants to sell them. He's in Hatton Garden, and he's selling them. And one of his customers comes to him, and you know what they do? They have these little eyeglass things. They put on the eyeglass thing, and he's looking at this fellow's diamonds very closely. He takes his eyeglass off, and he says, "Habibi," said, "I've got to tell you something about the diamonds you're going to sell me." The fellow says, "What? Well, what are you going to tell me?" He says, "You know what? They're all glass. They're not diamonds. They're fakes. They're cubic zirconium. It's worth nothing. It's not even worth its weight in plastic. It's nothing. Let alone selling them for diamonds." So what would the fellow do? The diamond dealer, what would he do? He would go crazy with the guy. "How dare you?" He'd go, "Oh, are you sure? Let me check." And he checks. "Oh, you're right. Thank you very much." And then he goes back to Thailand, and he throttles the guy who sold him these fakes. Yeah, maybe the last bit's not true. But you see the point there. Would the diamond dealer be angry with the fellow who pointed out this terrible error of the diamond dealer? Would he go, "No, how dare you? He'd say, "Thank you very much. You've saved me thousands of pounds. I'm going to go back and get my money back," or throttle the guy, whatever, depends what the diamond dealer's like. But let's assume he's an honest guy. He's going to go and get his money back, and the fellow's going to go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I tried to rip you off. Here's your money back." If he's honest enough, maybe did teshuvah, the wholesaler. So, but you get my point. That is tochacha when it comes to material things. Yeah, this is an example from Rav Chizkiyahu Kohn from Gateshead. What about when we're rebuking somebody for something which is ruchani, something which is spiritual, when they're telling you, "Excuse me, you know what, I hate to tell you, but you need to be careful with, let's say, lashon hara, or you need to be careful with rechilot, or need to be careful with kashrut, it could be anything." Now the person immediately, instead of saying, "Thank you for bringing it up," he'd start getting cross. "How dare you tell me? You'll know much better than me. Correct yourself before you correct me." Now, all these things, okay, they come from a place where people get hurt. We're not stones. We're emotional. Yeah, it hurts us when we get told off. But there's a level beyond that where you are modeh al ha'emet. You just have to acknowledge the truth. It could be somebody screaming and yelling at you and but if he's screaming and yelling at you that your car is leaking petrol and you're going to be you're in the middle of the motorway and you're going to run out of petrol when you're doing 70 miles an hour in the fast lane, you're going to say, "Thank you very much, I'm going to pull over, I'm going to stop now." Of course, but when it comes to spiritual things, we all get in a half, we feel offended and everything. Yes, I know, but you need to get over that. It's hard. It really is not easy. It takes years and years. I certainly haven't got it right. I also get told off. I'm not immune. Rabbis aren't immune from being told off. I get told off all the time. Yeah, but not by my wife. But people, whatever. In any situation you're in life, you're going to get some rebuke, some telling off from somebody in some situation. Doesn't matter who you are. You could be an 80-year-old with a long beard with a walking stick, and they'll tell you off for walking too slowly. Yeah, so there's bound to be some sort of telling off. So you just have to say, "Look, it's the truth. It hurts, but it's the truth." And you know what? This person is a vehicle. He's a shaliach. He's a messenger from God. He's bringing me the truth. Yeah. Now, sometimes you might think, "Well, why should I accept it from him? He's doing it to hurt me." Fine, but at the end of the day, he's a vehicle for truth. Now, if this just occurred to me, if we accept bracha from somebody like Bilam HaRasha, now who could be worse than Bilam? Tell me one person in the Torah who's worse than Bilam. I think you'd be hard pushed. Maybe Amalek. Yeah, but who's worse than Bilam? Yet he came out with the greatest brachot we ever. We sing his songs at weddings. Yeah, we sing, Ma tovu alecha. Yeah, what? This comes from the worst Rasha, the worst Zevel, Hevel Havalim, the worst Rasha Merusha. So I don't understand. Why are we singing his songs? It's like singing somebody who's 1,000 times worse than Hitler. Yimach Shemo. Why would we ever sing a song of Hitler? The answer is Hitler never spoke the truth, but Bilam was forced to speak the truth. But he spoke the truth. He spoke brachot, praises of Hashem, from Hashem. So it doesn't matter where it comes from. If it's the truth, it's the truth. It could come from the worst place, but the truth is the truth. So a person, yeah, if he's going to get told off by somebody and the truth comes out of the person who's telling him off, does it matter if that person is a good person or a bad person? It's the truth. Doesn't matter where it comes from. He can't be worse than Bilam. If he's worse than Bilam, I want to hear about it. I want to make sure we keep away from this guy. If you're getting told off by somebody who you think is worse than Bilam, then come and send me an email and I'll find the guy and I'll investigate him. Write me an email, rabbikalati@gmail.com. You all know the email address by now. By the way, before I forget, something very, very important. We are now at the beginning of Av. Every year we send out by email the Elul list, the list of resolutions for Elul. We've done it the past few years. This year we will be adding to it or altering it because somebody's already sent me one new suggestion, one new resolution to put on the list. If you have any suggestions, please write to me, rabbikalati@gmail.com. Anyone who's watching this or listening to this on TorahAnytime.com, please, and we will bli neder send it out within the next few weeks, hopefully, bli neder, because I'm going away in a couple of weeks. So I want to try and get all those suggestions in and make a nice list, and you'll have something to take on for Elul, put you in good standing before the Day of Judgment. Okay, so you understand the point I'm trying to make, that it doesn't matter how the truth is being displayed to us. It could be in a flurry of anger, a torrent of abuse, but the truth is the truth. The truth can come from Shamayim, and the truth can come from someone which is not Shamayim, if you see what I mean. Okay? Right. By the way, I also saw a beautiful story today. There was a mashgiach in a yeshiva who, when somebody was going to join the yeshiva, he verheard him, he tested him. And he said to him like this. He said, when you were in yeshiva katana, like primary school, how did you know when they wanted to tell you off? How did you know when the rabbis wanted to correct you if you did something wrong? He said, well, when I would do something wrong, they would come and correct me. They knew that if I was doing something correct, they would straight away pull me up and tell me. They wouldn't necessarily tell me when I was doing something right, but they would tell me when I was doing something wrong. Okay, and if you were on the level, you weren't doing anything wrong, fine, then they wouldn't bother me. So how do you think they're going to treat you now in this yeshiva gedola? He says, well, the same thing. They're gonna pull me up. No, he says the Mashiach. That's not how they're going to treat you here. They will only correct you if they know you're somebody who will be willing to listen to the rebuke. If you're going to be somebody who they're going to call you in and tell you you're doing this wrong, or whatever, and you're going to go, thank you very much, have you finished now, and then walk out the room, they won't even waste the time. They won't waste their time, they won't waste your time. They just won't bother. You're not going to hear from them. But if they know you're somebody who will accept censure or rebuke or reproach, however you want to call it, then they will tell you. because then they know they've got a chance of success. And they know that you will have a chance of success. If you become a keli, you become a utensil who will accept rebuke, then you will get it. And it really makes sense. So in our lives, we have to be people who will accept rebuke, who will accept being told off. You know, it's a zechut actually to have rebuke. I've told this story before several times. It's worth telling it again because it's such a powerful story, and it's a story of tzaddikim. So we know there was a Rav who started the Gera dynasty, the Gera Hasidut. His name was the Chidushei Harim. The Chidushei Harim had a son who passed away. And this son who passed away left a son who grew up to be the Sfat Emet. Now, the Chidushei Harim, the grandfather, brought up the young Sfat Emet when he was when he was a young man. Yeah, because this poor boy, his father passed away at such a young age. Yeah, so he was brought up by his grandfather. Now, the Sfat Emet, the grandson, was extremely studious. He was a big Talmid Chacham. And he would sit as a young boy in the Beit HaMedrash learning and learning. He didn't care about eating, he didn't care about breaks, and no coffee breaks, and no internet breaks, and no phone breaks, and no whatever it is. He would sit and learn v'zehu. So one day he was learning with his chavruta, and he was learning through the night. He had, just like the 5 rabbis in the Haggadah, he had to be stopped and told, hey, shacharit time now. Okay, so he closed his sefer. Remember, he probably hadn't slept during the day either. I'm sure he didn't. The whole night up until shacharit, so he closed his sefer. I'm presuming he washed his hands, etc. Brachot, and then went into the Beit Knesset to pray. And his grandfather was there. But when the grandson had come in, he was a little bit late. Why? Because I believe the story goes he fell asleep for 10 minutes before he went in. He had 10 minutes sleep, so he came into shul late. And his grandfather was sitting there, the Chidushei Harim, and after shacharit, he turned around to his grandson and he gave him rebuke. He said, "You are my grandson, you're like my son. When you come to shul late, it sends a message to everybody. If the grandson of the rabbi can come late, I could also come late. Yeah, you're supposed to be early, not even on time, you should be early." And he continued giving him rebuke. And what did the Sfat Emet do? He put his head down and he didn't say a word. He accepted every word of rebuke from his grandfather, his holy grandfather. Now, the Sfat Emet's Chavruta was there. And the Sfat Emet's Chavruta knew that, the Sfat Emet was learning all night. So he came up to the Sfat Emet afterwards. He said, "Why didn't you tell your grandfather you were learning Torah all night? You would have vindicated yourself." So the Sfat Emet turned to his Chavruta and he said, "What?" He said, "I should have told my grandfather that, and I would have lost out on getting rebuke from my holy grandfather. That I can't do such a thing." You see, he did. Of course, he was completely innocent, but to get tochacha, to get rebuke from his grandfather, the holy Chidushei Harim, that was something he savored. He was such a good boy. Where on earth was he going to get rebuke like that from? Yeah, so he relished it. Now, I'm not saying it's easy to get to that level. It's a very lofty level to be able to, to be told off and you keep your mouth shut and you know you are 100% right. And if you just explain yourself, you'll be fine. But this was, he accepted the rebuke because it was rebuke, just because it was words of musar from a holy man like his grandfather. You see, it's such a beautiful story. This should send a message to everybody. Yeah? Especially when a person gets rebuked by his parents. Now, as a kid, it's very difficult to get rebuked from your parents. It's very difficult because all you hear is in your ear. And you just think, when is it going to stop? When's it going to stop? When's it going to stop? That's all you care about. You don't even hear what they're saying afterwards. It's just blah, blah, blah. That's all you can hear. But it's worth opening your ears up. It's worth opening your ears. Now, I Baruch Hashem, married with children. My mother still tells me off. She doesn't tell me off every day, but one of the main things she tells me off. She says you're a little bit too harsh in your shiurim. You're being a bit too harsh when I go on about the internet and iPads and all the garbage and nonsense, the hevel havalim that we have in our world. She says you're a little bit too harsh because people can't take it. And I listened to it. And I evaluated it, and she was speaking the truth, because you can't, because I used to, practically every shir used to have a little section where I used to have a rant and a rave about people, Jewish people wasting time and seeing things and just deprioritizing. I don't do that as much anymore. I do a little bit, so I'm not harsh about it. Yeah, even though I feel, I certainly feel no less. I feel even more stronger now. I just have to sometimes be a bit more delicate how I say things. Yeah. So yes, sometimes it hurts. You know, but you know, mind you, she's not somebody who screams and shouts. It's a little bit easier to take. She just tells me. She sits down. She tells me, I hope. She prefaces what she says. She says, I hope you don't mind. Yeah. As if I'm going to say, yeah, Mum, I really mind what you're going to tell me. Of course, I don't mind what she tells me, but she does. She herself is delicate. Yeah. So, yes, it's hard to take rebuke, but also from the point of view of being the one who's doing the rebuking, you have to be very careful there as well. You can't, go in like, flare up and have any vested interest. You want to get all your angst off your chest. You know, that's terrible. That's no good. That's not going to do anybody any good. That's just selfish. That's just, you're just using the person as somebody to beat up. That person becomes like a punch bag. Yes, instead of telling off the person like that with all your own nonsense, go into a room, first of all buy a punch bag, give the punch bag a good throttling, then come back and tell off whoever you're going to tell off, whoever you're going to give rebuke. But you can't use the person as a human punch bag. That doesn't do anybody any favors at all. Okay, now, we still haven't got past the first pasuk. Let's give another idea about the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu is hinting at all these previous episodes, the catalogue of errors of Klal Yisrael. Why was he hinting? I had another idea, that the hint was actually referring to the hint, the remez, the hint of the sin that was still resonating within the Jewish people at that time. Let me explain. You have to understand what's taking place here. We said this took place 36 days before Moshe Rabbeinu died. When was that? This was 40 years into after leaving Mitzrayim. So they're already very experienced, desert dwellers. And also one thing you have to understand is that these were not the same people that left Egypt. These were the next generation. So Moshe Rabbeinu is coming in telling them off, the spies, Korach, Midlolanim, the complainers, etc. These people had nothing to do with it. It was the previous generation who did all these sins. The spies, that was 40 years ago, 39 years ago, whatever. So what on earth is Moshe Rabbeinu complaining to the children? So this is the idea. He was hinting to them because the hint was the subtlety of the sin was still in the next generation. The previous generation who committed the sins, of course, they were guilty as charged. But the next generation also needed to be rebuked because they had a little bit of a subtlety of that sin within them. So Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, okay, I know you personally did not do the sin, but because you are your father's son or you are your mother's daughter, you still contain there's still a hint of that sin within you. So correct that. Don't let that go any further. Now this is a very, very important point, because we know that the nature of sin is that a child does not get punished for the sins of the father. But, yeah, don't stop the recording now. Keep listening, because you get the wrong idea. But if the child perpetuates the sin of the father, then he is responsible. That's the thing. If the parents do a sin and the child doesn't take an example, oh, my parents did a sin, I have to stop doing that, but he doesn't do that, he carries on, he perpetuates the sin, then he's responsible for the sin of the parent. It's a very important klal, very important general rule to bear in mind. That's where the culpability rests with the children. Yes, so it's very important. You have to nip it in the bud. You have to say, look, I've got this error, my parent, I have to correct that error. Not only must I not do that sin that my parents' generation did, I have to correct that sin. Not just for me, for their sake. For their sake, because they're going to benefit as well. If you correct their error, they will benefit as well. So many times we see kings of Israel who were wicked, and then their children corrected the father's sin. Chizkiyahu HaMelech, case in point, corrected his father's sin. He was a tzaddik, he could have been Mashiach. He corrected it. So many times we see this. It's up to us to correct the sin of the previous generation. Now, we're talking about rebuke. There's a beautiful story about how to rebuke somebody. It's a story from Rav Aaron Kotler, who was the Lakewood Rosh Yeshiva, who was somebody who was very, very resolute in his conviction. Yeah? I always go on about people not being wishy-washy. You can't be wishy-washy. If you believe something and you know it's the emet, it's part of the Torah, you have to stand up for it. Because you're not standing up for your own beliefs, you're standing up for the Torah. Who doesn't want to stand up for the Torah? So Rav Aaron Kotler had once in his yeshiva a certain Talmid who was off kilter. He was going off the derech big time. And Rav Aaron spoke to him, he didn't listen. He spoke to him, he didn't listen. Again and again and again. And Rav Aaron had patience with him, had patience with him, until it came to Yom Kippur. And I believe it was even Ne'ilah time on Yom Kippur. And Rav Aaron asked one of his students, go bring this boy. This boy was probably in his room. Maybe he wasn't even praying. He said, go bring this boy to me. So they brought this boy, and Rav Aaron took him, and he put his arm around him, and he put him under his talit. Yes, imagine under his talit, just like somebody that, you know, if you go to a Sephardi wedding, the Khatan puts the talit over the kala. You did that, Simon? You did that with your wife, you remember? You don't remember? Look at the pictures, yeah? I did that at my wedding. I know many Sephardim. They put the talit, they cover over the kala. It's a beautiful, beautiful custom. So that's what he did. He took the boy, put him under his talit, and he said something to this boy. Now, the story goes that nobody knew what Rav Aaron said to this boy, but when he came out of the talit, he was a changed person. He came back into Shuvah. Maybe not immediately, but that started the ball rolling, and he was already back on the way. What did he say to him? Okay, we say nobody knows. But the point is, he didn't give him rebuke, fire and brimstone and yeah. First of all, he must have spoken to him gently because nobody heard what he was saying. But look what he did. He put him under his talit. He put him close to him. How much closer you get to a person than being under his talit? When Sephardim, when we bench our children, we give our children at Birkat Kohanim, what do the kids do? They run under the talit of the father. Because us being Sephardim, we do Birkat Kohanim every day and twice on Shabbat and Chagim. We put the talit over the child and then we bless them because that's a sign of closeness. So this is what Rav Aaron did. It's such a beautiful idea. You want to tell somebody off? That's one thing. Bring them close to you. Put your arm around them. when you're giving them rebuke. That's a sure sign that you got the best interests at heart. How better can you say it than this beautiful story? Now, advancing on in the parasha, okay, I know we've only got to the first pasuk, we're already half an hour into the shir. Let's get to pasuk 17. So chapter 1, verse 17 tells us we've got to stand up for what's correct. Listen to this. Lo takiru fanim b'mishpat kakaton kagadol tishma'un lo taguru b'bnei ish. This is the important part I want to focus on now. You shall not, what's taguru had translated as, you shall not tremble before any man. Yeah? Ki mishpat le'elokim hu, because judgment is from Hashem. So basically, it's empowering judges to enforce the emet, to not cower behind, oh, this person is more powerful. How can I give a judgment against him? He's so powerful. He's going to tell you. No, the truth is the truth. The truth applies to the weakest person and to the most powerful person. There's no distinction. There's no protectia when it comes to the emet, the truth, which means truth in judgment. So there's an amusing anecdote which I read today from Rav Shmuel Salant. Rav Shmuel Salant was a Rav in Yerushalayim, and there was somebody who he had to give a judgment on somebody, and as these stories go, the fellow who was giving the judgment, they didn't like the judgment. Always, you never hear the stories about the person goes around and says, "Oh, thank you very much for the judgment," and goes home happy. No, you never hear those stories. It's only when there's somebody who's disgruntled. So what happened, this fellow was very disgruntled with Rav Shmuel Salant. He issued a judgment against him, and this fellow was going to lose out. And of course, this fellow was a very powerful fellow. So what did he say to Rav Shmuel Salant? He said to Rav Shmuel, he said, "You know what I'm going to do to you? I'm going to come around to your house, I'm going to break all your windows." Now, Rav Shmuel Salant stood up to his full height, probably, and he said to the fellow, he said, "And what do you think, what do you imagine I'm going to do if you do that?" Now, Rav Shmuel Salant was a very meek, very humble, soft-spoken man. And he got up and he spoke like this, "What do you think I'm going to do to you if you do that?" And the fellow was not expecting that. So he didn't say anything, and that was the end of the story. Now, afterwards, they came to Rav Shmuel Salant, and they wanted to know, his Talmidim or the people who were there, and they wanted to know, "Rabbi, what were you going to do to this fellow if he broke all your windows?" They expect him to say, I would have gone, slapped him to the Beit Din again, I would have fined him. So what did he say? He said, "Well, you know what I would have done if he broke all my windows? I would have gone and called the glazier to fix them." That's what he would have done. There's nothing more serious than that. But he was telling the truth. But he just put the fear of God in the fellow, as it were. Because the fellow got scared, he wasn't expecting that. But it shows that, you like the pasuk says, you should not tremble before man, before any man. It doesn't matter who, even if you're judging the king. The king is not immune from judgment. The Gadol Ador is not immune from judgment. We have cases in the Torah. The Torah deals with stories about Zakein Mamre. What's a Zakein Mamre? It's not Mamre as in Aner, Eshkol, and Mamre, the three students of Avraham Avinu. Not that Mamre. Mamre from the word moreh, to rebel. A Zakein, an elderly sage who rebels against the Torah. This sage has a judgment, and it's a wrong judgment. And the Sanhedrin tell him, "Hey, you judge wrong." And he says, "No, I'm going to enforce my judgment." And he doesn't listen to the Sanhedrin. That's called a Zakein Mamre. He is judged. And if he doesn't listen, well, there are very severe consequences. We'll talk about taking his life. So nobody's immune. Nobody's above the law. Everyone is within the law. Anyone who's considered a man, you're bound by the law. You're bound by the Torah. So of course we shouldn't tremble before any man. The Torah judges a man, that's it. Okay, so there were two Averot that Moshe Rabbeinu expounded upon. He didn't leave them just as hints. He actually went into them in a bit of detail. One of them was the sin of the spies. Moshe Rabbeinu elaborated on it. You'll see now, Pasuk 22, chapter 1, verse 22, he says like this, Vatikravun elai kulechem batomru nishlachan nashim lefanenu v'yachbru lanu et haaretz v'yashivu otanu davar et haderech asher na'aleh ba v'et harem asher navo alehen. Let's translate this. All of you approached me and said, let's send men ahead of us, let them spy out the land and bring word back to us, the road on which we should ascend and the cities to which we should come. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, look, you came to me and you wanted me to send spies. That wasn't my idea. That was your idea. Now, there are 2 points I want to make on this particular statement. And there's one word in this pasuk which is key to understanding what I'm going to say. The word is kulanu. All of you, again I repeat, all of you approached me and said, let's send men ahead of us, which means the spies, and let them spy out the land. All of you, all of Bnei Israel came in one go. So we are told that yes, they all came in what's called an irbuvia, which means like a multitude. I suppose you would say a balagan. Everyone came rushing ahead, pushing ahead, send spies, and it was like a whole rush, like what's that place? Harrods. Yeah, the Christmas sales, or the New Year, what they call it, the January sales in Harrods, where people come, they bring their tents and they camp outside. Yaakov Ishtam Yoshev Ohalim. They come and they camp. They make a machaneh outside, so that when the doors open, boom, they rush in, they grab the bargains. This is what happened. They were all rushed in. And where's the derech eretz? Where's the orderliness that they had at Har Sinai? Har Sinai, everyone was there, was calmly waiting for the Torah. There was no irbuvia there was no balagan there. So now, when it comes to spies, when you've got an agenda, now you rush. So that was no good. So what was Moshe Rabbeinu saying there? He was saying, you could claim that you had a point. You had a good point in sending the spies. You could turn around to me and say, yeah, well, look, we wanted to make a recce, to reconnoiter the land. What's wrong with that? So what was Moshe Rabbeinu telling them? He says, fine, you think you had a point, but it was not L'Shem Shemayim because you all rushed. The whole thing was doomed from the outset. It started from the way you came and approached me. Because you came, you rushed, you pushed. The elderly pushed the young pushed the elderly, hands were flying and, as if, it's like a kiddush on Shabbat, after Shabbat morning, when shul finishes, boom, straight for the kiddush. And when you get to the table, in America they call it smorgasbord. When you get to the table, this is what you do. I'm not saying you should do this. This is what happens. People go, they rush to the front of the kiddush, and then you camp there. You stay there. There's people behind you peeking over your shoulder. That smells nice. No way they're going to get through because you form a barrier and you don't let anybody through. And you're eating there instead of taking a plate, putting something in a plate, and moving away. It's like you're kavua. You're fixed, right? This is very wrong. If you don't mind me giving rebuke, not to you, obviously, to generally. Yeah, this is incorrect. There are other people, there's people, old people there, they're desperate for a mazonot, desperate to have a drink, and you're there, young man, sitting schmoozing with your friend for half an hour. No good. Make a plate, step to the back. Yeah, go and mingle with other people. Yeah, it has to be said. It has to be. If you're not going to hear it from me, well, maybe somebody else will tell you, but not as nicely as me, anyway. Okay, just joking. But the point is there. So how did I get to this? Yeah. So this was what they were doing. They were rushing and everything. It wasn't done in a way befitting for the Jewish people. The Jewish people are worth more than that. They're not rushing to get to a Kiddush. They're supposed to approach Moshe Rabbeinu in an orderly fashion. So because they were so impatient, they had to get their answer. We have to know. What happened because of that? Like my father, Alav Hashem, always used to say, I'd rather you be 5 minutes late when we were driving in the car, or rather you were 5 minutes late than not get there at all. Yeah, you'll be ultimately delayed. If you see you understand what he meant. Don't drive too fast because you may never get there at all. Be 5 minutes late if you're in a hurry. Yeah, so because they were impatient, because they pushed and they rushed and they had to get their agenda pushed forward, therefore, what was the result? Instead of going into Eretz Yisrael, chick-chack, straight away, they had to wait 40 years in the desert. Midah keneged midah, measure for measure. You want to push things quickly in the wrong way? You'll still end up waiting. That was the downside. Now the Netziv, this is my second point now. The Netziv, Rav Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, says a different idea. He says that when it says kulanu, all of you, it doesn't mean all the people came and pushed every single one. You know what all of you refers to? It refers to the leaders. The leaders were the ones who came forward and all came together. So what's the pshat? What's the idea? All the leaders approached? What's wrong with that? Instead of everyone coming forward, just a select few came to speak to Moshe Rabbeinu. What's wrong with that? You know what the Netziv says? It wasn't the leader's opinion per se. It was that they had listened to the people. The people were grumbling and whinging. Why should we go into the land? What's going to be? So the leaders, who should have been more responsible, they listened to the people and they came and they approached Moshe Rabbeinu. Instead of the leaders saying, no, we will decide what is right and what is wrong based on what the Torah wants us to do. Now, again, you're going to turn around to me and say, oh, how can you be so, what's the word? Not democratic. What's the opposite democratic? Totalitarian? What's it? Democratic? I can't think. The opposite of democracy. Yeah, sorry? Autocratic. How could you be so autocratic? What, just the leaders decide what's going on? Of course not. You take on board, of course, you listen to other people, but to make a decision based on them without giving the rationale of the Torah, that is wrong. You know, they say the Pnei Hador Pnei HaKelev, when Mashiach comes, the generation will have the face of a dog. You know that famous, we always talk about this? The generation will have a face, does it mean people walk along with, like, you know, you see these Photoshop images of dogs on people's heads. Some of them are really, really good. You see an Alsatian's head on a human, and it looks really odd. Yeah, but it's so well done. They stitch it together in Photoshop. It looks fantastic. You ever see someone with a dog's head? Of course not. I mean, some people look like dogs, yeah, but not really, really. Yeah, they just have a little. Anyway, Rashi actually said that's what it means. People would have the face of a dog. But there's another opinion which said, what does it mean when the generation has the face of a dog when Mashiach comes? What does it mean? You know what it means? When a dog is being led by its master, yeah, what does the dog do? The dog rushes ahead. Yeah, always tugging at the leash. But then what does he do when he goes around the corner? He turns around. He looks at the human. Okay, where are we going? You want to go? Okay, we'll go there. Yeah? So the dog, if you were an outsider, you were an alien from the planet Mars, and you landed on Earth, and you saw this dog walking, this four-legged creature walking, and there's a string there, and there's a biped, a two-legged creature holding onto the string, you would think, the dominant race on this planet is quadruped, is the four-legged creature. He has a string attached, and his servant is holding on the back, and the quadruped is leading the biped. The dog is leading the human. Yeah? You'd think that the dog goes and and yet that's what you conclude. And it looks like that's what it looks like. That's not the case. Of course, we know the human being is the one who's leading, and the dog every so often turns around and he wants to know, where are we going now? Because of course it's a human that's leading. But this is what it means. The leaders of the generation will not make their own decisions in the best interests of Klal Yisrael. They'll look back. What are the people saying? What do the people want? Do the people want something? Well, they won't make a cheshbon. They'll just say, whatever the people want, that's what I'm going to do. Because they value their position. Yeah, it's more than their job is worth to do something that the Kehillah doesn't want. So the Kehillah wants something not in the derech of the Torah. And they all want it. And they're pressuring the rabbi, do this, do this. Now, what the rabbi should really do is say, slap his hand on the stender and say, no, let me show you. In the Shulchan Aruch it says this. So what you're asking for is wrong. The Torah says not like you're saying. So we're going to do like the Shulchan Aruch. We're not going to do like what you're doing. But what would the leader do who is more swayed by public opinion? He would say, well, I suppose this and that. And then he'll listen to what the people say. He doesn't want to go against the people. They'll throw him out of his job. So that's what it means. The Dor in the generation in the time of Mashiach is the generation which has the face of a dog. Like a dog. Yeah, he does. It looks like he's leading, but he really does whatever his master wants to do. The master is the people. The people tell the dog what to do. That's not correct. The dog has to be led. I'm not saying the Jewish people are like dogs. God forbid. But I'm saying the Jewish people have to have a leader, and the leader has to lead. The leader must not be led. The leader has to lead. It's very simple. Leader means you lead. Of course, with the dictates of the Torah. There's no question about that. But to be swayed by public opinion? No. That was the problem, says in the Tziv, of the generation of the spies, because they followed public opinion, and that was wrong. It turned out as disastrous consequences. Now, I'm going to finish off now with a little bit of time. Just give you one last story, which is an incredible story. We talk about rebuke. We talk about effective way of getting people back on the derech. Listen to this story. I admit I have said this before. Yeah, I'm doing this a lot recently, repeating my stories. But you know, there's some which I can't just bury them on a shear from 4 years ago and that's it. It deserves to be resuscitated, this story. It's a beautiful story. So this story was, I read this in Divrei Torah from Rav Aryeh Leib Scheinbaum from America, from Cleveland. So he brings the following story in the form of a letter that was written by the person who it occurred to. So this fellow says like this. He says, when I was a young man, I came from a religious home, and I decided, well, I'll cut the story a little bit short, that Judaism was not for me. And it didn't happen overnight. Initially, I thought, you know what, I don't have to keep this, I don't have to keep that. And then I got in with a crowd who was a little bit not as religious as me. And when I joined this crowd, I said to myself, I'm not going to be influenced by them. I am me and they are they. You know, I have values and they have no values. But this was not the case because it didn't last long, and I started becoming more and more assimilated to their way. So I dropped, over a short period of time, I dropped everything. I dropped my religion, the kashrut went, the Shabbat went, everything went. And to my parents' horror, because I came from a religious family, and now I wasn't keeping anything, basically. Still, my parents reacted in a way that my father said to me, look, he gave me a chance, He said, look, I have to be concerned for your siblings. So I'm going to ask you to leave the house. Now, again, this is not the first recourse. The father must have given his son countless chances before he got to this stage. Because there comes a time, I think probably this boy was the oldest sibling, where he was having an influence on the younger children. So now the father said, look, you is one thing, but my other children, your brothers and sisters, I don't want them following the way that you're following. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. And it must have been an extremely painful decision for the father. But that's what he did, kachaya. And he says in his letter, this boy says, he says, I can remember my mother crying at the door when I was leaving. Yeah, so what happened? I left. I said, look, I've got to go. They told me to go, and that's it. I lost contact with my family for the most part of a year. Okay? And he says he missed them very much, but you know what? I know what I know, and they know what they know, and I'm right, and they are wrong. And what's the point of being in contact with them? So he cut himself off from his family, even though he missed them. So now, it came one morning, where he was living, this fellow was living, he saw his father was waiting outside the building. So he said to me, son, I haven't seen you for however long it is, for almost a year. Let's go somewhere, let's talk, let's have a chat. Fine. So I really wasn't in the mood for this, but I agreed, it's my father. So I agreed. He went with his father, they sat down, they had a coffee, and he told me, he said, you know, your family loves you and your family misses you, and we want you to come home, and it's very difficult for us, and your mother is still crying. And the father said it in such a way that the son, he was just started crying. You know how it hits your heart. Words which come from the heart go to the heart. And which parent doesn't speak words like this? They speak words of honesty. Which of those words will not penetrate the heart of a child when his father's speaking like that, in words of honesty? So he just said, look, he said, I'm just telling you the situation. I'm not asking you anything. I'm not demanding from you anything. As a father, I just want to ask you one thing. I want you to come with me to a caver, a grave of one of the tzaddikim, and I want you to say one kapitel Tehillim, one chapter of Psalms at this grave, and I'm not going to ask you anymore. Now, this fellow was so off the derech, it's unbelievable. I'm sure he probably had long hair, maybe earrings, who knows what he had. You can only imagine. And it will probably be worse. But anyway, so he's like, what? Tehillim? I don't even remember how to read Hebrew. But you know, look, it was his father. His father said one thing. Which child is going to refuse his father? So he said, okay, I'll go with you, you know. So they went that day. So it wasn't that day, it was another day. He said, you should, I want you to come with me today. Don't wait another day. Please come with me today. But the fellow said I had plans that day, I had friends. I was going to go to AC, Atlantic City, to go gambling. Atlantic City, for those who are not American, that's the place where people go and they gamble. Yeah, for us, I don't know, we don't even have an equivalent for that. We know, anyway, only in America. So they were going to AC that day to gamble all their money. So I said to my dad, look, I can't come now. I'll come with you another day. So my father said, no, please, come now. So, look, I had an arrangement, but it's my father. What can I do? I can't say no to my father. So he went with his father. So he called up his friends, and he said to him, look, I'm really sorry, I can't come with you today. I have to go somewhere with my father. I haven't spoken to my father for almost a year. Fine. So he went with his father. They drove to this grave of this certain tzaddik, and I read the Tehillim, and it must have looked like a very odd sight. The father was dressed like a long black coat and like a tzaddik, and the child with his jeans and probably his long hair and whatever. Still, that's what he did. Now, the next day, there was something terrible that happened on the way to Atlantic City. The friends who he was supposed to go with, they went to Atlantic City that day, and they were involved in an accident, and every single one of those people died. Everyone in that car died. They hit a large, like a large truck, and that's it. No survivors. And the son, believe it or not, never mentioned this to his father. He just, the story goes, he came back into Shuvah, and he got married to a frum woman, and he came out. Now, did the father come and start losing his patience with his son and saying, "What, you haven't spoken to me for nearly a year? Do you know what your mother's going through? How could you?" And screaming and going off. Maybe the son might have reacted to that. But chances are probably not. That doesn't really work with most people. But the father just let his emotion come out. He put whatever he had of his ego, put it completely to one side and just said the truth. He said, "Son, we want you back. We want you back. Hashem wants you back." Now, there was no demands. Now, you know what? Start keeping Shabbat. No. First, you sell the idea to the person and let him make up his own mind. That was the idea. Now, God forbid, we don't want anything like this to happen to anybody, to make them come back into Shuvah. But you can see the point here that this is, I've given you examples of the way that we bring somebody back on the derech. We don't bring them back on the derech with fire and brimstone. It doesn't work, or I should say, extremely rarely works. Only for people who really have hachna'ah. They're submissive and they accept rebuke like this, like the Sfat Emet, when he listened to his grandfather's rebuke. Okay, not many people are on that level. So as a person who's rebuking, it has to be done from the heart with no negative emotion. Put it aside. Shelve it. Just speak honestly and from the heart. And if it's going to take you a while to compose your emotions, go into another room. Compose yourself and then come back and speak to the person. Preferably with your arm around them. As long as it's not a female, if you're a male. Well, if it's your daughter, there's something else, but you know what I mean. You hear what I'm saying. And if you're the person being rebuked, listen out for the truth. Don't let your feelings of hurt and of, don't let them get in the way of hearing the truth. Now, again, it's easier said than done. It's extremely hard. But that's ultimately what has to be done. It hurts sometimes. The surgeon, God forbid, you have to be in this situation where you have to have surgery, but he's putting the scalpel on a person. Normally they'd be knocked out. But let's say it's not elective surgery. Let's say it's surgery where you have local anesthetic. You might even feel the pain. Or you're in a situation where, you're having treatment and it's very painful treatment and it hurts. But ultimately, this is going to do me good. This is going to help. But it hurts. It really. Now, would you turn around and say, "I can't take this. It hurts too much"? Sometimes you do. Sometimes God forbid, lo aleinu, the pain is so much that you become like almost delirious with the pain. God forbid, nobody should have such a pain. But ultimately, if a person is lucid and he realizes, then he realizes this pain is for my own good. It's going to cure me. The same thing, the rebuke will cure you. Sometimes even the pain is meant, not sometimes, the pain is meant as a kapara. The pain is coming from Hashem as well. The rebuke, the pain of the rebuke is coming from Hashem as well. That's also meant as a kapara. So we should take all of that on board. It's not easy, like I said, but we have to aim for this. We have to aim high, aim to be a responsible Jew. And B'ezrat Hashem, we will see this year, Tisha B'Av won't be sitting on the floor. It will be from Evel to Yom Tov. Tisha B'Av this year, B'ezrat Hashem, we're the greatest Yom Tov. And we will see, we won't even need rebuke from Hashem. We'll have had all the rebuke. And Hashem will give us only the reward, which is Mashiach Tzidkeinu. It can happen this year without any further delay, without any further pain. Amen.